The pain shot through my side like electricity, making me grip the edge of my desk to stay upright. My vision blurred as sweat beaded across my forehead. The office around me continued its usual Monday morning chaos. Phones ringing, keyboards clicking, colleagues laughing, while I struggled to breathe through what felt like a knife twisting in my abdomen. Riley, where's the Henderson deck? We need to review it before tomorrow's pitch. Dean's voice cut through my fog of pain. I straightened up too quickly and nearly collapsed. My hand instinctively pressed against my side where the internal bleeding had been slowly draining my strength for weeks. It's almost ready, I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Dean strode toward my desk, his expensive watch glinting under the office lights. He looked immaculate as always. Tailored suit, perfect hair, the confident smile of a man who had built his career on other people's work and suffering. Almost isn't good enough. This is Henderson we're talking about. Their account would double our department's revenue. He lowered his voice. And double my bonus, which means good things for your future too. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Dr. Mera, according to the screen. I'd been waiting for this call since my alarming test results came back. I need to take this, I said, reaching for my phone. Dean's hand shot out, pressing down on mine before I could answer. Whatever it is, can wait. Henderson can't. The call stopped buzzing. Dean smiled and removed his hand. Good. Now, conference room in 5 minutes for final review. As he walked away, my phone buzzed with a voicemail notification. I pressed it to my ear, turning away from the open floor plan where 20 colleagues pretended not to eavesdrop. Riley, this is Dr. Mera. Your scan results are concerning. The internal bleeding is more severe than we initially thought. We need to schedule surgery immediately, tomorrow morning at the latest. Please call my office as soon as you get this. If we don't stop the bleeding within the next 72 hours, the consequences could be, just call me back, please. My hand trembled as I lowered the phone. 3 days, I had been walking around with this pain for weeks, thinking it was just stress or maybe an ulcer. Now I knew it could kill me. I dialed the doctor's office and scheduled the surgery for 8 a.m. tomorrow. Then I gathered my courage and approached Dean's glass-walled office, where he sat reviewing documents. I need to speak with you, I said from the doorway. He didn't look up. Make it quick. I can't be at the Henderson pitch tomorrow. I've been scheduled for emergency surgery. My doctor just called. Dean's head snapped up. Excuse me? I have internal bleeding. It's serious. The doctor says if I don't have surgery within the next 3 days, cancel it. His tone was flat, final. What? Cancel your surgery. This client pitch is more important, Dean hissed, standing up and closing his office door. You're being dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. It's genuinely life-threatening, I explained, my voice steady, despite the searing pain. I could die if, Dean rolled his eyes. Everyone has health issues. I worked through kidney stones last quarter. The Henderson account needs your presentation skills. You built the entire strategy. Someone else can present it. Amelia doesn't have your polish. Look at the bigger picture here, Riley. This is about the team, about the company. It's about my life. It's about priorities. Dean circled his desk, lowering his voice. I didn't want to tell you this yet, but I've been considering you for promotion to senior strategist. That corner office could be yours by next quarter, but I need team players, Riley, people who understand sacrifice. The carrot and the stick. Classic Dean. For 2 years, I'd watched him build his reputation on our team's crushing workload. 3 colleagues had quit from burnout in the past 6 months alone. He'd taken credit for my marketing campaign that saved our biggest account while simultaneously slashing our wellness benefits to improve quarterly numbers. I thought about my mounting hospital bills from all the tests, my rent due next week, the student loans that still haunted me 7 years after graduation. Look, he said, checking his watch, either you're at that pitch tomorrow or don't bother coming back at all. Through the glass walls, I could see the entire team avoiding eye contact, terrified they'd be next. Okay, I said quietly. Dean's smile returned. Good choice. Conference room, 5 minutes. I walked back to my desk on unsteady legs. Pain pulsed through my body with each heartbeat. I sat down and stared at my phone, at the missed call from Dr. Mera. Then I did something I'd never done before. I picked up my phone and made one call. Not to HR, not to Dean's boss, not even to my doctor. I called my grandmother. Gwen speaking, her crisp voice answered. Gran, it's Riley, I need your help. While most of my colleagues saw me as just another overworked marketing strategist, they didn't know about my grandmother. They didn't know that quiet, unassuming Gwen had spent 40 years as general counsel for Henderson's parent company before retiring last year. They didn't know she still played golf weekly with their CEO and maintained a board position emeritus. And they certainly didn't know that she'd been quietly documenting my situation for months, waiting for the right moment. "Tell me everything," she said, and I did. When I hung up, I felt something beyond the pain, something like hope. The next morning, I arrived at the office 2 hours early. My face was pale, my body shaking from pain medication that wasn't quite working. The surgery I should have been having was scheduled to start in 30 minutes. Instead, I was reviewing presentation slides and rehearsing talking points. Dean arrived 90 minutes later, clutching his premium coffee and looking refreshed. "Glad to see you made the right choice," he said, patting my shoulder. "You won't regret it." He had no idea how wrong he was. At 9:45, 15 minutes before the Henderson executives were due to arrive, Dean's assistant rushed in. "They're here early," she whispered, eyes wide. "And they brought extras." Dean grinned. "Excellent. They must be bringing more decision makers. Riley, get the extra presentation packets from my office." As I walked past the reception area, I saw them. The Henderson CEO, Jonathan Hayes, 2 board members, and my grandmother Gwen, wearing her best suit and a look that could freeze fire. Dean emerged from the conference room, hand extended in greeting. Then he saw my grandmother. His step faltered. "Miss Warren, what a surprise." "Dean," my grandmother acknowledged coolly. "I believe you know my granddaughter, Riley." Dean's head whipped toward me, eyes widening in shock and dawning horror. "What did you do?" he whispered desperately when he pulled me aside. "Please, we can work something out. I'll approve your medical leave right now." "Too late," I whispered back. If you're enjoying this journey of workplace justice, take a moment to like, subscribe, and comment with what you would have done in Riley's situation. Your support helps these stories reach others who might need to hear them. Now, let's continue with what happened next. My name is Riley Warren. I'm 32 years old, and until yesterday, I was a senior marketing strategist at one of the top agencies in the city. I spent my days crafting campaigns that turned struggling brands into household names, my nights recovering from 60-hour work weeks, and my weekends answering urgent emails that were never actually urgent. I was good at my job, too good, perhaps. Good enough that my boss, Dean, had built his reputation on my ideas for 2 years. Good enough that when clients requested me specifically, Dean would insist on joining meetings to support me, only to interrupt, redirect, and ultimately claim credit for concepts he'd initially rejected. But I stayed because I needed the health insurance. The first symptoms appeared 6 months ago, occasional sharp pains that I dismissed as stress. Then fatigue so profound I'd fall asleep at my desk. By the time I finally saw a doctor, the internal bleeding had been going on for weeks. Something about a rare complication from a minor surgery I'd had years ago. My grandmother Gwen raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 8. She taught me resilience, integrity, and patience. Know when to fight and when to wait, she'd say. Timing is everything. As the only female general counsel in her company's history, she'd faced more workplace abuse than I could imagine. While she encouraged me to stand up for myself, she also understood the realities of needing a paycheck. "Document everything," she'd told me after I described Dean's behavior the first time. "Build your case silently. The right moment will come." For months, I'd been keeping a detailed journal. Screenshots of Dean taking credit for my work in emails. Recordings of meetings where he'd presented my ideas as his own. Testimonials from 3 colleagues who'd quit because of him. A record of every time he'd denied time off for medical appointments. I didn't know what I was saving it all for until yesterday, when he forced me to choose between emergency surgery and my job. The Henderson pitch meeting began with Dean looking increasingly uncomfortable as my grandmother introduced herself to everyone. "Before we discuss any business," Gwen began, "I'd like to address something troubling. My granddaughter is missing her critical surgery right now because she was threatened with termination." Jonathan Hayes, the CEO, looked disgusted. "We don't partner with companies that endanger their employees' lives for a presentation." Dean tried to speak, but my grandmother raised her hand. "I've been collecting testimonials from former employees about similar incidents. The board has copies. Your replacement starts Monday." Dean's face drained of color. "This is a misunderstanding. Riley is a valued team member. I would never—" "I have the recording from yesterday," I said quietly, pulling out my phone. "When you told me to cancel my surgery, or not bother coming back." Hayes stood up. "We're done here. Miss Warren, we'd be happy to reschedule this pitch when your granddaughter has recovered, and perhaps with different representation from your agency. Security arrived moments later. As they escorted Dean out, my grandmother turned to me. Now, let's get you to the hospital. The surgeon is waiting. I swayed on my feet, the pain medication fading. The last thing I remember before passing out was the look of pure hatred Dean gave me as the elevator doors closed on him. I woke up in a hospital bed hours later. The surgery had been successful, though the doctor said I'd lost so much blood that waiting another day could have been catastrophic. You nearly died, Gwen said, holding my hand. All for a client pitch. It wasn't just about the pitch, I whispered. It was about all of it. Every idea he stole, every vacation he canceled, every time he made Amelia cry or drove Percy to quit. Someone had to stop him. And someone did, Gwen smiled. You did. But as I drifted back to sleep, I wondered if it was really over. Dean wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully, and while he might have lost his job, I had nearly lost my life. The balance didn't feel equal yet. What I didn't know then was that losing his job was just the beginning of Dean's downfall, and that my recovery would bring unexpected challenges and opportunities that would change everything. I spent 5 days in the hospital recovering. The procedure had been more complicated than anticipated. The internal bleeding had damaged surrounding tissue, requiring additional repair work. Each morning, Gwen arrived with fresh flowers and determination in her eyes. The board called. She told me on day 3, they're launching a full investigation into workplace practices at the agency. I nodded weakly. And Dean? Cleaning out his office under supervision. He's telling everyone it's a temporary misunderstanding. Of course he was. Dean had always been skilled at spinning narratives to suit his purposes. I wondered how he'd frame this one, the dedicated director, sabotaged by an ungrateful employee who couldn't handle the pressure. On my final day in the hospital, I received a text from Amelia. Office is chaos. Dean gone, but still has allies. Some saying you orchestrated his downfall. Be prepared. I wasn't surprised. Dean had cultivated loyalty through selective favoritism. He'd promoted those who never questioned him and marginalized anyone with independent thoughts. During my 2 years at the agency, I'd watched him create an inner circle who benefited from his rise and would naturally feel threatened by his fall. When I finally returned home, my apartment felt strange, as if it belonged to someone else. The potted plants on my windowsill had died, a small but painful reminder of how close I'd come to the same fate. I sat on my sofa, scrolling through dozens of unread emails and messages. One caught my eye. From Dean, sent just hours ago. We need to talk. Coffee tomorrow? This has gone too far. I never meant to harm you. I showed it to Gwen when she came by with groceries. Ignore him, she advised. He's fishing for sympathy or trying to intimidate you. What if he's genuinely sorry? Gwen raised an eyebrow. After 2 years of abuse, you think 1 week of consequences changed him? This is tactical, not emotional. She was right. Dean wasn't seeking reconciliation. He was seeking control of the narrative. I deleted his message without responding. 2 weeks after my surgery, still on medical leave, I received a call from Petra, the agency's HR director. Riley, I hope you're recovering well, she began, her voice carefully neutral. I'm calling because we'd like you to come in for a meeting tomorrow regarding recent events. What kind of meeting? Just to get your perspective on things. Dean has made certain allegations about your professional conduct that we need to address. My heart sank. What allegations? It would be better to discuss in person. Shall we say 10 a.m.? I hung up and immediately called Gwen. He's countering, she said after I explained. Classic deflection strategy. When accused of misconduct, claim the accuser is the actual wrongdoer. What should I do? Go to the meeting. Bring copies of everything you've documented. And Riley, bring me. The next morning, I dressed carefully in my most professional outfit. My side still ached where the surgical incision was healing, but determination pushed the pain aside. Gwen met me outside the agency building, immaculate in a navy suit that radiated authority. Remember, she said as we rode the elevator, they're scared. The Henderson account is hanging in the balance. The company's reputation is at risk. That gives us leverage. The conference room contained Petra from HR, Vince the agency founder, and a woman I didn't recognize who was introduced as legal counsel. No, Dean. Thank you for coming in, Vince began, his usual confidence notably diminished. We wanted to discuss your complaint against Dean. It wasn't a complaint, I corrected. It was me refusing to die for a client pitch. The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Vince cleared his throat. Dean has provided some information suggesting you've been strategically documenting interactions to build a case against him. He says you've been unwilling to meet deadlines, resistant to feedback, and have deliberately undermined his leadership. That's interesting timing for those concerns, Gwen interjected. Were they documented in any of Riley's performance reviews? Petra shuffled through a folder. Riley's reviews have been consistently excellent. So, after 2 years of stellar performance evaluations, she suddenly became problematic the moment Dean was held accountable? Gwen asked. The room fell silent. Let me be clear, I said, opening my laptop. I've documented Dean's behavior because it was unprofessional and harmful, not just to me, but to this entire agency. 3 talented people quit in the past 6 months alone. Client satisfaction scores have dropped 18% under his leadership. I turned my screen toward them, showing a spreadsheet tracking departmental performance metrics. And this isn't about a personal vendetta. It's about a pattern. I began playing audio recordings, Dean taking credit for my ideas in client calls, Dean threatening another team member's job over a requested day off, Dean mocking a colleague's anxiety disorder when he thought no one was listening. The lawyer stopped taking notes and simply stared. Vince's face grew increasingly pale. There are dozens more examples, I said, but I think you get the point. Why didn't you come to HR sooner? Petra asked. I gave her a level look. Because when Percy did, he was let go 2 weeks later for performance issues. Because when Amelia complained about working 80-hour weeks, she was told that's what it takes to succeed here. Vince rubbed his forehead. What do you want, Riley? I want a workplace where people don't have to choose between their health and their jobs. I want accountability for the culture that allowed Dean to thrive while others suffered. And I want assurance that anyone who spoke up against him won't face retaliation. And if we can provide that, the lawyer asked, then I have no interest in pursuing further action. They exchanged glances. We'll need to discuss this internally, Vince said finally. As Gwen and I stood to leave, Petra spoke up. Dean mentioned that the Henderson pitch materials were his intellectual property and that you presented them to the client without authorization. My blood ran cold. This was Dean's countermove, claim I had stolen his work. The perfect symmetry of his accusation made it dangerous. That's interesting, Gwen said calmly. Considering Jonathan Hayes from Henderson specifically requested Riley for the account after seeing her previous work, I believe those emails are still available. In the elevator, I sagged against the wall. He's trying to destroy me professionally. He's desperate, Gwen replied. And desperate people make mistakes. One such mistake arrived the next day. A former junior designer who had worked under Dean before I joined the agency contacted me through social media. I saw what happened with Dean. It happened to me too, 2 years ago. I have proof he stole my designs and pushed me out when I confronted him. I've been afraid to come forward, but I'm not anymore. More messages followed. A former account manager, an administrative assistant, a copywriter who'd left after just 3 months, each with similar stories about Dean's manipulation, credit stealing, and retaliation. It's like lancing a boil, Gwen observed as I showed her the growing collection of messages. Once you break the surface, everything hidden comes pouring out. Within days, the agency announced an expanded investigation into workplace culture. Dean's counter-allegations against me were dropped, but the professional damage control was just beginning. Client calls were hastily arranged to reassure nervous accounts. Team meetings turned therapeutic as people finally spoke openly about experiences they'd previously kept hidden. I participated in these discussions remotely, still recovering at home. Then came the text from Amelia. Dean got another job, creative director at Bolt Agency, already telling people he left voluntarily for a better opportunity. Bolt Agency, our biggest competitor, the company that had been trying to poach the Henderson account for years. He'll have access to all our client strategies, I told Gwen, panic rising. He knows every weakness, every price point, every relationship dynamic. Calm down, she advised. This might actually work in our favor. How? He's going to use inside information to steal clients. Only if Bolt hires him knowing how he obtained that information. That would make them legally complicit in corporate espionage. I frowned, not following. So what do? Gwen smiled. We make sure they know exactly who they're hiring. 3 days later, Dean posted a self-congratulatory announcement on his professional profile. Excited to join the incredible team at Bolt Agency as their new creative director. Looking forward to bringing fresh perspectives and winning strategies to their impressive client roster. The comment section filled with congratulations from his supporters and industry connections who didn't know the real story. His new beginning was taking shape exactly as he'd planned. But Dean didn't know what was happening behind the scenes. He didn't know that Gwen had arranged a golf game with the general counsel of Bolt's parent company, her former colleague from law school. He didn't know that the routine background check Bolt was conducting now included specific questions about client confidentiality and intellectual property rights. He didn't know that the 5 former employees who had contacted me had also reached out to Bolt's HR department with their documented experiences. Most importantly, he didn't know that his reputation was unraveling thread by thread in rooms where he couldn't defend himself. 1 week before Dean was set to start his new role, I received an unexpected visitor at my apartment. When I opened the door, I found myself face to face with him. "We need to talk," Dean said, pushing past me into my living room. "You can't just walk in here," I protested, keeping the door open. "Say what you came to say and leave." Dean looked different. His usual polished appearance had slipped. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. "Call off your attack dogs." "Excuse me?" "Your grandmother and her golf buddies, the orchestrated smear campaign, the calls to Bolt questioning my ethics. It stops now." I crossed my arms. "I don't control what other people say about their experiences with you." "This isn't about experiences," he snarled. "This is about revenge. You weren't good enough to lead the Henderson pitch, so you manufactured a crisis to sabotage me." "Manufactured?" I lifted my shirt slightly, showing the healing surgical scar. "I nearly died, Dean. Everyone has health problems. You used yours as a weapon." His delusion was almost impressive. In his mind, he was still the victim, the talented director, brought down by jealous subordinates. "You need to leave," I said firmly. "Not until you fix this. Call Bolt. Tell them you exaggerated. Tell them it was a personality conflict, not misconduct." "No." Dean stepped closer, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "You think you've won? I built you, Riley. Every skill you have, I shaped. Without me, you're nothing. And I promise you, if I go down, I'm taking you with me." A throat cleared from the doorway. We both turned to see my neighbor, Tony, a retired police officer, standing there. "Everything okay in here?" she asked, her experienced eyes assessing the situation. Dean straightened, professional mask sliding back into place. "Just a work discussion. I was just leaving." As he brushed past Tony, he looked back at me. "Last chance, Riley. Make this right, or regret it." After he left, Tony helped me install a doorbell camera. "People like that escalate," she warned. "Be careful." That night, I couldn't sleep. Dean's threats echoed in my mind. What did he mean by taking me down with him? What leverage did he think he had? The answer arrived at 3 a.m., an email from Dean to my personal address. "Final warning. Attached is the proof that you falsified data in the Carrington campaign last year. Their 42% increase in engagement, actually 26% before you adjusted the numbers. I kept a copy of the original analytics as insurance. If I don't start at Bolt on Monday, this goes to Vince, Carrington, and the Industry Ethics Board. Your move." My heart hammered as I opened the attachment. There they were, the original analytics from the Carrington campaign. But I hadn't falsified anything. Then I saw it. The document properties showed the last edit was made by Dean himself 3 days ago. He had altered the original reports to make it look like I had inflated the results. This wasn't just professional retaliation anymore. This was fraud, and he was trying to frame me for it. I forwarded the email to Gwen with shaking hands. Her response came minutes later. "Don't panic. He just made his biggest mistake yet." I barely slept that night, my mind racing through possibilities. Dean had manufactured evidence against me, a calculated move that could devastate my career even if I eventually proved my innocence. The industry ran on reputation, and accusations of data falsification would follow me for years. At 7 a.m., Gwen called. "Don't go into the office today. Stay home and wait for my call." "But the falsified data is exactly what we needed," she interrupted. "Dean has committed actual fraud now, not just ethical violations. He's created and distributed falsified business documents with intent to harm. That crosses the line from workplace misconduct to potentially criminal behavior." "What are you going to do?" I asked. "Let me handle this. Trust me, Riley." Trust had always been difficult for me. Growing up with Gwen after losing my parents had taught me self-reliance to a fault. Even as an adult, I struggled to believe anyone would fight for me the way I fought for myself. But if there was one person who had earned my trust, It was my grandmother. Okay, I said finally. I trust you. While waiting for Gwen's call, I paced my apartment, unable to focus on anything. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Amelia. Oh my God. Dean just got escorted out of Bolt before even starting. Security walking him out of the building. What's happening? I stared at the message, pulse quickening. Before I could respond, another text arrived from Percy, my former colleague who had quit 6 months earlier. Riley, rumor mill exploding. Dean apparently tried to blackmail someone with falsified data? Agency lawyers involved? Is this connected to you? How did Percy know already? I called Gwen immediately, but got her voicemail. The uncertainty was unbearable. An hour later, my phone rang. An unknown number. Is this Riley Warren? A woman's voice asked when I answered. Yes, who's this? Naomi Wright, legal counsel for Bolt Agency. We need to speak with you regarding some serious allegations involving Dean Harper. Would you be available to meet this afternoon? My stomach tightened. What kind of allegations? I'd prefer to discuss in person. Your grandmother suggested 3 p.m. at her office downtown. Would that work for you? So Gwen was orchestrating this. Yes, I'll be there. Gwen's office was in a stately building that housed her private legal practice since retirement. When I arrived, she was waiting with a composed expression that revealed nothing. What's going on? I asked. Dean got escorted out of Bolt. People are talking about blackmail and falsified data. Patience, she replied. Our guests will be here momentarily. Within minutes, we were joined by 3 people. Naomi Wright from Bolt, Jonathan Hayes from Henderson, and Vince from my agency. The energy in the room was tense, expectant. Gwen took control immediately. Thank you all for coming on short notice. We're here because Dean Harper has engaged in behavior that affects each of your organizations. Riley, would you please share the email you received early this morning? I forwarded Dean's blackmail email to everyone present and watched their faces as they read it. Vince paled. This is, if he falsified data for Carrington. He didn't, I clarified. The original campaign results were exactly as reported. Dean altered the old reports recently to make it look like I had inflated the numbers. How can you be sure? Naomi asked. Gwen slid a folder across the table. These are the original analytics, authenticated with timestamps and server access logs. The document Dean sent shows editing activity from his personal computer 3 days ago. IT Forensics has verified this. Jonathan Hayes leaned forward. So, he fabricated evidence to blackmail Riley? Yes, Gwen said. After his attempt to secure employment at Bolt by leveraging confidential client information from his previous position, Naomi nodded grimly. He approached us, claiming intimate knowledge of competitor strategies, including Henderson's. He implied he could deliver your account to us within 6 months. Hayes's expression hardened. That explains his call to me last week, suggesting I should diversify agency relationships. The pieces were falling into place. Dean hadn't just been seeking a new job. He'd been planning to poach clients using inside information. There's more, Gwen continued, opening her laptop. With Riley's permission, I've compiled testimonials from 7 former employees documenting similar patterns of behavior, data manipulation, taking credit for others' work, threatening retaliation against those who challenged him. As Gwen presented the evidence, I watched the faces around the table transform from skepticism to shock, then resolve. These weren't just workplace complaints anymore. They revealed a pattern of deliberate deception that threatened the integrity of multiple businesses. What do you want from us? Vince asked finally, looking defeated. Gwen glanced at me, nodding slightly. This was my moment. I want 3 things, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. First, a comprehensive review of workplace culture at the agency, with concrete steps to prevent similar situations in the future. Second, formal recognition of the work that was attributed to Dean but created by others. And third, I took a deep breath. I want assurance that Dean will not be in a position to harm others in our industry again. That last part might be happening already, Naomi said. After discovering his attempted blackmail this morning, Bolt has not only terminated his offer but is preparing to notify industry partners about the ethical breach. His reputation in this market is effectively over. A wave of emotion swept through me. Not satisfaction or triumph, but something closer to relief. The constant tension of working under Dean, the fear that had become so normal I barely recognized it anymore, began to dissolve. The meeting continued for another hour as details were discussed and agreements reached. Vince, looking humbled, offered me a promotion to replace Dean as director. Jonathan Hayes reaffirmed Henderson's commitment to working with me directly. Naomi expressed interest in my insights on workplace culture reform. Throughout it all, Gwen sat beside me, steady and proud. When everyone had gone, she squeezed my hand. "You did it, Riley." "We did it," I corrected. "No," she insisted. "I only helped create the opportunity. You had the courage to stand your ground when it mattered most." 3 weeks later, I returned to the office as the new director of strategic marketing. The changes were already visible: flexible work arrangements, mandatory response times for medical accommodations, anonymous reporting channels for misconduct. Small steps, but meaningful ones. Dean, meanwhile, had left the city. Industry connections reported he was struggling to find work, his reputation preceding him. The last I heard, he was taking freelance projects at a fraction of his former salary. My new team gathered for our first Monday meeting. Familiar faces like Amelia sat alongside new hires who had been attracted by our agency's commitment to reform. The Henderson campaign materials were spread across the conference table. Our first major project under my leadership. "Before we begin," I said, "I want to establish some team principles. Your ideas will always be credited to you. Your health comes before any client deadline. And most importantly, we succeed together, not at each other's expense." The room felt different, energized but calm, ambitious but ethical. As we dove into the work, I touched the still tender scar on my abdomen. The physical wound was healing, and so was the deeper damage of having worked in a toxic environment for so long. That evening, I met Gwen for dinner to celebrate my first day as director. "I've been thinking about what happened with Dean," I told her over dessert. "If I hadn't gotten sick, if he hadn't pushed me to cancel surgery, none of this would have changed. I might still be working under him, just accepting things as normal." Gwen considered this. "Sometimes it takes a crisis to reveal what matters. Your health crisis exposed the true nature of your workplace. Dean's crisis of losing power exposed his true character. I never wanted revenge," I admitted. "I just wanted the harm to stop." "The best revenge isn't about hurting someone else," she said wisely. "It's about creating a reality where they can't hurt anyone anymore." She raised her glass. "To making one call that changes everything." I smiled and clinked my glass against hers. "To knowing when that call needs to be made." 6 months later, our agency won an industry award for the Henderson campaign, the very pitch I had nearly missed due to surgery. As I accepted the award, I scanned the audience of industry professionals. "This award belongs to many people," I said into the microphone. "To my team, who brought creativity and heart to every aspect of this campaign. To Henderson, for trusting our vision. And to everyone who has ever spoken up to change a toxic situation, even when it seemed impossible." I paused, thinking of how far we'd come. Sometimes the most important decision isn't about strategy or design or messaging. Sometimes it's about drawing a line and saying, "This is what I will not sacrifice. Not my health, not my dignity, not my colleagues." When we protect these things, we create space for our best work to flourish. The applause was thunderous. As I stepped off stage, my phone buzzed with a text from Gwen. "So proud of you. Your parents would be too." I took a deep breath, feeling truly whole for the first time in years. If this story resonated with you, I hope it gives you courage. Workplace injustice thrives in silence. And sometimes one voice, your voice, can change everything. Share your experiences in the comments below, and remember that you're not alone in these struggles. Your story matters, and it might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to make that one crucial call that changes everything.